Hello and welcome to Robinson Hall Experts Talk. My name's Laura Saunders. I'm the Marketing and PR Manager at Robinson Hall. And today I'm joined with David Jones, Partner and Head of Agency. David is instrumental in Robinson Hall's growth for the past 3 decades. His local agricultural roots and extensive experience put him in good stead to advise on a range of urban and rural property transactions. He currently heads up our agency team, which includes development, land and agricultural sales, and he has been involved in various projects throughout the years. So David, today we're going to be talking about whether farmers and landowners have considered selling their land for development. Tell me more about your role within the development land sector.
Well, hello, and firstly, thank you for inviting me to join you on this podcast. We act for farmers and landowners throughout Bedfordshire and all the surrounding counties and some further afield. And inevitably, some of those landowners are lucky enough to have land that falls in the right place or potentially falls in the right place for future development. Sometimes the potential for that development is merely perhaps a plot or two in a village or some barn conversions. Sometimes it's much more substantial, 100 new homes or 1,000 new homes or more. And we are pleased to be able to help those clients through the difficult planning world, the development world, and hopefully in many cases to a satisfactory conclusion.
And for those that might not know, what is development land and land promotion?
Yes, well, development land is very simply land that has planning permission for residential development or indeed for other forms of development, for warehousing or for employment uses. The promotion side is really what comes first, though. The farmer starts off with just some bare fields and with the hope that something might happen, and they typically give us a call. We come out and have a look and can give an initial assessment. And very often we're looking at a project that might last a few years or 5 years or 10 years or 25 years in order to come to a satisfactory conclusion. But we won't ever get to that satisfactory conclusion unless the land is promoted through all of the local plan and the neighbourhood plan processes. And many of our clients don't have the spare cash to risk on that promotion process because the outcome is uncertain. And so usually they want to team together with a professional promoter, and we work with maybe 8 or 10 really good professional promoters who have the funds and have the experience to promote land over long periods of time. If they're unsuccessful, then there's no risk to the landowners. The promotion agreement falls away and they have a chance to think again. But if the promoter is successful, then typically the land gets sold and the promoter takes a share of the sale price and the landowner takes the lion's share. And we regard that as being a successful outcome.
Thank you. And how do farmers know if they have land which would be suitable?
Well, I think almost always it's the proximity to an existing settlement. So if the land is on the edge of an existing village or on the edge of an existing town, then it's very well worthwhile taking an initial view from someone like ourselves as to whether there's some longer term potential. There are other situations where land might be considered for development, perhaps if it's an old airfield or some previously developed use. In some cases, land might be some distance from the settlement, but it might be an area where some very significant development can be envisaged. We were involved, for instance, in the large-scale expansion that's happening on the northern side of Dunstable and Howden Regis at the moment, which extended a long way from the settlement boundary. And likewise at Leighton Buzzard, there's a large development on the eastern boundary of Leighton Buzzard for I think it's about 2,500 homes in total that we're involved with. So sometimes you can be some distance from the settlement boundary, but usually it's proximity to existing chimney pots.
I guess you would say to any farmer or landowner that isn't sure, then the best thing to do would be to obviously seek expert advice, and we could do a site appraisal.
Absolutely. We're always happy to go out and visit land and speak with landowners on a no commitment basis. We're very happy to do that, and we do it all the time. It might be that we end up giving disappointing advice, that the land is the potential for the land is limited, but that's what we're here for. We're very happy to give that advice. If it comes to something, then we'll be very pleased to move forward together. But if there's no prospects, then we're very happy to have made the visit in the first place.
And I think we all know that farm diversification is key, and it has been for many years. So what if a farmer or a landowner is considering putting a field into solar panels or a wind farm, but there's an element that they're possibly thinking, or wonder whether it would be suitable for development as well. Do you find that those types of fields and parcels of land aren't normally suitable, or again would you suggest that they seek expert advice?
Well, obviously I would suggest that they seek advice, and every circumstance is different. I think you have to remember that the development game is a long-term game, but all of our clients have short-term needs to earn money. So if there's a let's say a solar farm project, as you've suggested, that can earn money fairly quickly and might be very important to that particular family, that particular farming business, and might override longer term potential, which of course carries its own risks. In other situations, it would be wise to avoid those fields and perhaps put the solar farm elsewhere, and retain the possibility of developing the land that's immediately adjoining the village or the town. I would add that perhaps for things like solar farms, locating them immediately next to villages is not often a very popular prospect. So maybe the conflict doesn't arise as often as you might think. But it'll come down to an individual decision by that business, by that family.
Okay. And how is the market currently?
The market for residential development land has been strong up until maybe 18 months ago, when I don't want to blame Mrs. Truss entirely, but we had an increase in interest rates, and we also coincidentally had an increase in fuel prices, and that has definitely taken the shine off the development land market. But as I say, it's a very long-term project promoting this land, and in my professional life I've been through several booms and several busts, and I certainly wouldn't discourage anybody from promoting their land simply because we're in a quieter time at the moment. The market can turn round in a matter of 6 months or a year. We're about to have an election that could change a lot, depending upon the outcome. So yes, markets do go up, markets do go down, but this is a long-term prospect, and really, if it's the right time to start promoting, then I would advise any landowner to do so, whatever the market might be like at the moment.
Where do landowners start?
Where do landowners start? I would say usually by speaking with the likes of myself and getting an initial appraisal. There are various options going forwards. Landowners can spend their own money to promote their own land, and we're happy to help them with that. Or they can team up with a promoter, at the end of which the land would be sold and the development proceeds would be shared. Or alternatively, in certain circumstances, it's right to enter into an option agreement perhaps with a house builder. So the house builder buys the land from the landowner at the end of the process. So there's various options going forwards, which we can talk landowners through. But the best place to start is a phone call to someone like myself, and we'll come out and have an initial look at the land and provide an initial appraisal.
And previously you touched on the local plan. So what if the land doesn't get into the local plan? Is that basically a way of saying no, it's not suitable for development, or could a landowner do something about it? What would you advise?
Yes, of course. Not all projects are successful, or at least are not all successful immediately. There are two possible routes if you fail to get into the local plan. One is simply to wait for the next local plan review to come along, and indeed many parcels of land that get allocated in local plans have been promoted unsuccessfully to two or three previous local plans, and they, if you like, they have to wait their turn. So if you fail today, it doesn't mean to say that you necessarily will fail going forwards. And the other thing to consider is that local authorities have to maintain housing land supplies. The rules are a little bit complicated at the moment, but in simple terms, they have to maintain a 5-year housing land supply. And if they fall behind in that land supply, it is possible in certain circumstances to make a more aggressive approach, to submit a planning application. And if it can be proven that they are behind in their supply and that you've put forward a sustainable proposal, then it can be possible to get a planning application even though you're not allocated in a local plan. So there's usually other routes through, but generally the advice would be that if you fail this time, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will always fail.
And do the government have is there a time frame in which they then look at a local plan and then possibly would review it, or does it vary?
Yes, it does vary. Historically, a lot of local authorities had become very much behind in their local plan reviews, but there were measures that were brought in by the government 10 or 15 years ago that thankfully caused local authorities to sharpen their act somewhat. And most local plans in this part of the world have been being reviewed on a cycle of maybe 5 years, or a little bit longer than 5 years, 7 or 8 years. So there's always a review just around the corner. Sadly, this current government has sort of taken its foot off the throat of the local authorities in the last year or two, and has allowed them to become a bit more lax again. And so we are seeing some more extended timetables coming in. But as I say, we've got an election coming up, and hopefully whoever gets back into power, that can be sharpened up, and the local plan review cycle can get back onto a footing of perhaps 5 or 6 or 7 years.
And when it comes to going through the process of development land sales, how much control does the farmer or landowner have in regards to who actually buys their land and what they do with it?
Well, ultimately, the land is sold by the landowner or by the agent on behalf of the landowner. So there is an element of control, but the landowner will have entered into a promotion agreement with a promoter, which essentially says that the land should be sold for best value. So it would almost always be sold to the highest bidder. There are sometimes reasons why you wouldn't want to do so. Occasionally, we do have landowners who are concerned about the legacy impact of the development. Perhaps there are some developers who they think produce a product which they wouldn't be proud of in their village, and there are certain design features that they wish to see in the development. And so it is possible sometimes to have a certain amount of control as to who might buy and what the development might look like. But generally speaking, most landowners, in my experience, will simply want to sell for the best possible price. Why wouldn't they? And that is usually their duty to their promoter partner.
And then you've obviously mentioned about the process and how we can kind of help them through it, but is there anything else you wanted to touch on in regards to what Robinson Hall can do?
Well, Robinson Hall is a land agency firm with very broad services, ranging from planning to residential lettings, from dealing with commercial property to all of the land agency functions. We deal with obviously the development work that we've been discussing, and we also have an auctions department and a building surveying department. So we've got very, very broad church. So sometimes we do get called in to look at development land, but we come away actually advising clients on something completely different. So I would say, if there's something you want to talk to us about, give us a call. We're happy to come out and have a look, and who knows where the conversation might take us.
I think it's probably key just to mention that obviously that is one of our unique selling points, the fact that we do have such a broad range of services. So we can generally help most of our clients from start to finish using our in-house expertise. So you don't have to get passed from pillar to post and use various other third parties. So it does help smooth the process in general. So David, talk me through some development land sales success stories.
Yes, thank you. We have the pleasure of working with a lot of our clients over many years, over decades, over successive generations. So sometimes it's extremely pleasing to work with them to pull off, what might be regarded as a success story. Sometimes they're quite modest developments, maybe selling a plot or two in a village that raises a few £100,000, but that might be extremely important to that family in terms of maybe controlling bank debt, maybe in allowing some sort of payment to non-farming members of the family to remove them from the business and allowing the others to move forward. On other occasions, the amounts of money that we can raise for clients is truly life-changing, of the order of tens of millions of pounds in some of the larger cases. And of course, in those cases, many of our farmer clients look to reinvest that money into agriculture. Some of them look to reinvest it specifically not into agriculture because they want to diversify their risk. Again, it can be used to allow non-farming members of the family to leave the family, leave the business, makes that generational change a bit easier, and just generally it elevates the lifestyle of that farming family that we've, as I say, very often worked with over many years and many generations. So there can be some very pleasing outcomes, whether it's larger sums or smaller sums. It can make a real difference to people's lives.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention, David, before we conclude?
Just thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking to you this morning, and I hope that those listening will have gleaned a little something from us. And if we can help in any way, then we'd be very pleased to do so.
Thank you for listening. I'll be launching a series of podcasts over the coming weeks and months, so please stay tuned in. They will be available to listen to via our website and all the other podcast channels. Make sure you share, follow, like, engage. David Jones's contact details will be available or are available on our website in various locations, but if you head to the Meet the Team page, you'll see all of his direct line and mobile details, as well as his email address. So if you do have any other questions for him, then please obviously get in touch. Thank you for listening to Robinson Hall Experts Talk. Until next time, goodbye.